Remember the first time you moved faster than a speeding bullet, jumped a millennia with a single cut, or felt the raw power of a dinosaur?
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
These are the moments that changed filmmaking. The moments that raised the bar for what's possible to put on screen. The moments that forged a new path. Directors and cinematographers are constantly inventing and harnessing new technologies and techniques, leading the way for the future of cinema. Today, we're examining a movie that has pushed the boundaries of filmmaking further than ever before. This is the look of 1917. From the very outset, the buzz surrounding this visionary opus has been the fact that it was all shot and cut to appear as one seamless take.
And there is no better way to tell this story than with one continuous shot.
Writer and director Sam Mendes wrote the instruction on the front page of the script, something Deakins believed was a gimmick at first. This cinematography set piece, often called a oneer, can be likened more to ballet and theater. When they make it into the movie, they can become filmmaking folklore. But frequently, oneers are chopped up in the edit room for pacing and coverage, as was the case with the opening shot of Joker.
First shot that's in the movie, which is like a push in down the line, that shot actually goes even further, right? So it actually pushes all the way down and then wraps around and ends up in that close-up. They cut it up, but the actual shot is a one-shot thing that goes all the way around.
With a legendary cinematographer on board and an enigmatic director coming fresh off a 3-year break, one continuous shot could not have been a better or bolder option for this film. I felt like the best way to give you a sense of all this happening was in real time. I wanted you to feel like you were there with the characters, breathing their every breath, walking in their footsteps. The best way to do that is not to cut away and give the audience a way out. He was partly inspired to try the approach after watching his children play third-person shooter games, such as Red Dead Redemption. I watch them with those games and I find them remarkably mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. I wanted to do something like that, but with real emotional stakes. From the very first shot of the World War I film, when 2 young British soldiers are summoned from sleeping under a tree, it is the last time that they or the audience will catch their breath. For the remaining 2 hours of the movie, Mendes and Deakins stalk these young men in a continuous take along trenches, into bunkers and farmhouses, and through enemy territory on a mission to save thousands of lives. The camera is incessant. Of course, there's been some oneers in movies before, and even some war movies, but we've simply never experienced oneers at this level. Oneers that averaged 6 to 7 minutes at a time and peaked at almost 9 minutes long. And in 1917, the oneers come one after the other, absolutely seamlessly. And none of these feel like gimmicks. The oneers themselves serve as perfectly crafted story sequences. To achieve this required the most intricate planning. Production designer Dennis Gassner built scale models of the sprawling sets on a backlot at Shepperton Studios. These were used to choreograph performances and camera movements ahead of time, because every set had to be exactly the length of the scene. Before he built a single set, Gassner worked with Mendes and Deakins to map out how each move could be accomplished and how it would serve the story. He then created a model of the village, complete with moving LED lights. Obviously, with a oneer, rehearsal is key. This is the closest that cinema can come to theater and ballet. The whole production becomes a chess game, with cast and crew being intricate moving parts. Everyone has to know where they move, when they move, and how they move. But not just that, they have to know everyone else's moves too. In order to tackle filming this substantial, and with this level of ingenuity, Deakins deployed 2 skilled Steadicam operators. These 2 are operating an electrically stabilized, remote-controlled head called a Stabili. The crew also invented a gyro post for the Steadicam, so the operator could run forward down trenches with the camera facing backwards. Ares Trinity Rig, a hybrid camera stabilizer that combines classic mechanical stabilization with advanced active electronic stabilization, was also used extensively. In order to maintain movement, the cameras were attached to and pulled from wires, taken for rides on motorbikes and 4x4s, and even flown on a drone over water. While this was going on, Deakins was often controlling cameras remotely from a van some distance away. One stunning shot was captured with the remote camera skimming across the water at the bottom of a crater on a wire. An example of this choreography of camera switching would be Schofield's run down the front line. The camera starts off mounted on a 50-foot techno crane when he's down in the trench. It brings him up over the trench, and then the grips take it off and walk backwards with it, put it on another crane that's mounted onto a vehicle, and then track for a quarter of a mile. At the end, it goes down into the trench with him. To put into context just how key the camera work and action was, the last 45 minutes of this 2-hour film, almost half the movie, boasts only 20 lines of dialogue. Deakins shot digitally and convinced Arri to provide 3 prototype miniature large format Alexa cameras, ideal for their portability.
It's one of the smallest cameras so far I've ever used.
For a whole movie oneer, you may wonder what lens the cinematography great would opt for. Typically, you change lens focal lengths as you move in for coverage, but what lens can capture both sprawling war vistas and intimate close-ups in the same take? I wanted to shoot everything on a 40mm because it has a slightly shallow focus, but obviously you're in the larger format. So it's equivalent to like between a 32 and a 35 if you've been on a regular format Alexa. There are some scenes, like in the German bunker, we did on a 35. And there are some little scenes, the scene we did on the river, that's on a 47. But our basic lens for the whole shoot was a 40. How do you light an undertaking of this magnitude? Had Deakins the luxury of actual cuts, he could have just hidden light sources just out of frame and manicured any light to his liking. But the camera had to see 360 degrees, and often he'd be shooting in a bunker or cellar with little more than a few oil lamps on a table. With most of the movie being shot in exterior daytime in southern Britain, weather played a key, possibly detrimental role on the ambitious film. Deakins, the master of light and shadow, opted for flat and overcast conditions, and therefore continuity meant filmmakers often waited for cloud cover. During the night scenes, and with an opportunity to play with low lighting and silhouettes, Deakins came into his own, producing a stunning nighttime sequence of a French town undergoing a bombing that is nothing short of staggering. They were all on wires, and they all had to be timed to last a certain length, and they had to be a certain brightness so that I could shoot under them, and a certain color. Some flares are very blue. We didn't want that. We wanted this slightly kind of warm look to them. We wanted the feeling of, is this a nightmare? Is it a dream? Is it real? We felt we could stylize it to a degree, making it a bit noirish. Hence the idea of the flares and of shadows coming off of the shards of broken buildings. I felt it could be more of a slight dreamscape, a vision of hell, albeit meticulously designed and tested down to the time it took for the flares to fall from the air. This surreal sequence culminates in the image of a burning church. With Deakins finally in full control over lighting, he built a colossal rig that he described as the biggest single lighting fixture he had ever created. This 360-degree burning church was lit by 2,000 1K bulbs, all set on dimmers. The famed director of photography modeled the effect on Jarhead when he staged oil rig lights on location and added CG fire in post. The unconventional editing process that enabled Mendes and Deakins to continually build this oneer is certainly an unsung hero of the film. Tasked with piecing together this mammoth project was Lee Smith, Academy Award-winning editor of Dunkirk. Smith joined the project in pre-production, while Mendes was blocking and rehearsing the film. With an editor on set, Mendes was able to knit his film together in real time while he was shooting. To make sure the edits were seamless and to maintain the rhythm and pacing of the piece, Smith was assembling the film as it was shot. He was taking each day's footage and presenting Mendes with a cut that included rough sound effects and temporary music.
Because each day was informing the next day's photography. There could be 39 takes. If you didn't pick the right take, the next day can be screwed basically effectively by matching into the previous day's shoot. So there was an enormous amount of pressure while we were shooting to, be 100% sure that everything we were choosing was correct. Normally you would do that in post-production. So, kind of flip that dynamic. You either get it right or you're dead.
Throughout the discussions for 1917, Sam Mendes has persistently referred to the micro within the macro. Mendes wanted his story to actually be very small, very personal, focusing intimately on the individual human experiences of the two young soldiers amongst this huge war. So the camera style is much more about their experience than the war as a whole. We're not cutting away to anything or anyone else, and we are experiencing every bit of their perilous journey in real time. With 1917, the filmmakers clearly underwent phenomenal hardship with demands unlike any movie before it. We could certainly say that the story and the subject matter, which was based on Sam Mendes' own family stories of the war, warranted this level of artistry. Through this incessant juggernaut of a film, Mendes was able to tell an intimate, personal story that never lags and is always on the move. And in doing so, even filmmaking itself is driven forwards. They had one shot, and they took it. Thanks for tuning in to the Hurlbut Academy Look of 1917. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments what film we should do the next look of. Don't forget to register at hurlbutacademy.com to go beyond film school and master the art of cinematography.